The number one thing a lot of professionals can and should do right now is literally just go Google yourself, Google your name, your business name, and see what comes up. So many people just don't even have any idea what comes up. And like you said, pretty much everybody checks you out online before they make a decision to work with you. And so if you want something that can quickly move the needle, go see what comes up and be like, oh, you know what? Let me start getting some positive reviews, or let me, do what I need to do to make sure my website actually comes up and things like that. And that's going to have a massive impact on conversion rates, reputation, etc.
How can you help us, though, continue to help you? First, please subscribe to the channel. Like us. If you listen to the audio version, leave us a 5-star review wherever you can. If you see our posts, please share those posts, share the content, and link back to our law firm website, which helps us to continue our SEO marketing and grow our firm and help small business owners. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another show. I'm Mitch Beinhaker, your host. Welcome to The Accidental Entrepreneur. I always remind everybody, if they're listening on their favorite directory, leave us a 5-star review. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, we're trying to do more and more video. Get people over to that channel. Subscribe, like the channel, share it on social media. Help us keep growing and connecting with guys like John down in Texas and people all over the country and all over the world. And we've been fortunate in the last 7 years. So I remind everybody that the information we discuss on the show is for entertainment purposes only. It's not to be considered a guarantee or advice of any kind. And if there's something that John and I talk about on the show, if you're going to act on it, first go out and talk to your local professionals and don't hurt yourself, Don't try this at home type of stuff. So, John, thanks for coming on the show. I know we're going to talk about digital marketing today, and it is a common topic on the show. Everybody's talking about, how they market their business. And I think in today's day and age, it's kind of like the age of the small business, right? You can do things digitally that you couldn't do 30 years ago. You need like an advertising agency. So maybe we could talk about, I'd like to talk about your background first, where you got started, and then we can get into like things about digital marketing, AI, what kind of automation things what do you see in the landscape there? Does that all make sense?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, start with your background and your story.
Yeah, background. I, like you mentioned, I'm in Texas. I'm outside of San Antonio, Texas, and really started different blue collar jobs, but really got into more of the marketing space a little bit over a decade ago, and into digital marketing in particular. With kind of the reality, it's not like digital marketing was new then. It's been around for a long time, but there are still so many businesses who were figuring out how to get into digital marketing, kind of making that move from traditional, and so there's a lot of opportunities to help people figure out how to find customers online.
How did you kind of get started in it? Yeah.
Exactly.
You fell into it? Was your major in college? What did you do?
It was one of those things where it was more real world learning. Like technically, I did get a marketing major in college, but I mean, digital marketing in particular, like you learn, you can't learn that in college because every day is a new day there. So, lots of good concepts that apply, obviously, in terms of how to communicate with people, reach people. But yeah, very much just going out and doing, working with our own clients, figuring out how, what marketing is, what works, and then training other people to do the same thing.
So in the early days, like what were the businesses you worked for? How did you convince them to work with you? Because you were new, right, to the business. I always ask the marketers this question. So, how did you get started? What were your early clients like?
A lot of our early clients were very focused on Google Ads, how to run Google Ads. And I like to say we eat our own dog food. We got most of them by running our own Google Ads campaigns. So they're, on Google searching for solutions, and we ran our own campaigns and said, hey, we're a solution. Let's help you figure it out. And so that's really where we got started. And pretty early on got into what Google called their partner program, their premier partner program, where they kind of provide support and credibility too, so people know, hey, they're working with a known entity when they hire you.
Right. Sure. Okay. So what were the industries you were working in at the time?
Everything you can think of. We've never gone into a specific. We haven't niched down into specific industries. So everything from e-commerce, fashion brand, to local plumbers, to business to business, SaaS, a very wide variety of types of industries.
Does it make that Does that make it difficult, easier? Do things vary industry to industry?
There's a lot of differences industry to industry for sure. So it makes it more difficult. Not niching in makes it more difficult in that we don't just have a template that we can copy from client to client. Every business is very different, and the approach we're going to take for a fashion brand is going to be very different than your local plumber, as an example. But at the same time, there's a lot of good things that come from that. First of all, diversification as a business. When we went through 2020, for example, and the craziness there, some of our clients were dead in the water, and others had their
Yeah.
best years ever because of how things impacted
Okay,
things
right.
there. So diversification is great,
Yeah.
but also we're able to learn, what's working in different types of industries and different types of areas, and a really kind of a broad variety of how Google and other platforms are working, and then bring those things to work for other industries without being kind of siloed into learning from just one area.
Yeah, yeah. So how have you kind of evolved? I know that like Google AdWords, you just buy some and put them up anymore. The algorithm is very complicated. How do you keep your clients up with that? Because it seems like it's always a moving target, right? What worked yesterday won't work tomorrow, and what you get working tomorrow won't work in 2 weeks. So how do you deal with that?
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that keeps it interesting. Every day is a new day. It's like, all right, what's new? What's new today? What's not
right,
working that used to work? So, a it's about constantly testing and being on top of what we're seeing working. And again, that's one of the benefits of working with lots of different clients is we get
right.
access to tons of data. And so we can
Yeah,
see quickly patterns and trends. So A is just looking at the data. B, always being on top of what other people in our space are posting or saying, hey, here's on X, here, this is what's working for us. Is it working for you? Things like that is very important. And then another area that we're always having to stay on top of with Google in particular is their policies. So we do a lot
okay.
of work with businesses helping them stay compliant with Google's policies. And that is a world in and of itself as well, because Google and how they enforce their policies and what they say is constantly changing. So we're
Right. All of a
constantly
sudden you get shut down
mitigating.
for something you were doing before
Exactly.
that was allowable, and they changed the rules.
Yep.
Probably put it in some footnote that you didn't see.
Or the
Yeah.
rules didn't change, but just how they crawl, how the AI crawls websites change. And now suddenly a site that's been fined for 5 years is suddenly getting flagged, even though nothing changed.
No, is that due to a rule change or due to a mistake?
All of the above.
Yeah.
Google does make changes to their policies, but what happens more often than not is just how they kind of crawl things and how they enforce things changes.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has been impacted by AI. So most of the flags, the suspensions that take place are not a human going to your website and saying this is a problem. It's the robots crawling and finding something is a problem.
Yeah.
And anybody who's used AI these days knows it's not always 100% right. And
Not
just
even
because it
close.
thinks there's a problem doesn't mean there's a problem. So there's a lot of
Right,
that
right,
that we
right.
get to deal with.
Yeah. Okay. So I do want to get into AI and what it's doing and how you can use it, how you can't use it, and the problems it's causing. But I'd like to go back a little bit into if you're a small business owner, you're listening, maybe you're just getting started, and you hear a lot of stuff. I bring this up all the time, right? If you're a business owner and you're not in your space, right, in the digital marketing space, you hear a lot of conflicting things. Like, I mean, I've heard somebody tell me you should post every 50 minutes. I'm like, 50 minutes? What are you kidding me? I'll be out of business. So, and I don't want to pay somebody to post every 50 minutes for me. That's ridiculous. So, how does a business owner, because obviously, you work with a lot of businesses, but how does a business owner kind of, maneuver his way through those waters? What's good? What's bad? How does that change? What should they be doing online?
Hmm.
Because it's a lot of how you show up, right? That's what today is about. Even if
Yeah.
you don't do business online,
Yeah.
right? It's about how you show up. So maybe you can address that a little bit.
Yeah, we're in a very weird and interesting time right now
Yeah.
because of AI. In that I as a business owner, I can go and ask whatever ChatGPT, Gemini, your model du jour, all sorts of information, all sorts of questions about my presence, about how to run Google Ads, or SEO, whatever, and I'm going to get way more information than I would ever have been able to get in history, and it will be
Right.
tailored to my website, tailored to my account.
Yeah.
And it's going to be all be presented as very authoritative, do this, do that, etc.
Right.
And some of it's going to be fantastic advice, and some of it's going to be terrible advice. And so it's this weird thing where it's like, hey, I can get access to better advice as a business owner than really ever throughout history, just at my fingertips. But at the same time, if I don't have a framework for judging which parts are good and which parts are bad, I can
Right.
still really mess up things.
Right.
And so we're still, I think, at a place here where the really good people in whatever marketing space you're talking about are trying to take advantage of AI as much as they can, but also still bringing their framework of common sense and what they know is working historically, and trying to marry those two things and then provide that feedback and advice to business owners in terms of how they should, invest their budget and what they should focus their
Right,
time on.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it seems to me that it's always a moving target, right? So if I'm the business owner, there weren't these tools out there, and I work with a guy like you, we set up a strategy and we stick with that strategy because there's human beings like controlling things. Then you get onto AI. If everyone followed what they did research on AI, it would constantly be it would be a moving target constantly.
Yeah.
And it just seems like it moves so fast. I know a lot of clients, right? So I've been a business attorney for 33 years. So I've probably worked with thousands of businesses, but I go back to, I'm almost 60. So I go back to a time when there were printed newspapers and, you had 3 channels for news and things like that. I think a lot of people are very frustrated, right? I think a lot of people don't do things because they just think, not, if it works, it doesn't work. I don't know. Like, I have no idea. Now, I don't feel that way. I do things on a regular basis, and I know that consistency, even if it's not perfect, results in having content out there and people finding you, whatever. How do you address that when a client says, John, this is a waste of my time. I put in 3 posts last week and nothing happened, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, analysis paralysis is 100% a thing, and there's so many options, so many things you can do right
Yeah.
now, and so I think a lot of it comes down to bringing it back to basics and saying, hey, yeah, there's a lot of flashy objects out here, but let's really focus and let's use some common sense to think through how do people find the type of product or service that you are selling, and let's focus on that. So, an example, let's say you're a real estate agent.
Okay.
Most of that business is going to come from networking, referrals, friends.
Right.
Or there are some people who have been super successful at investing a ton of time and effort into content and kind of creating a brand. And so there's different ways you could go, but just throw on, a little bit at Google Ads and a little bit at Facebook, a little bit at Yelp, whatever. That's probably not going to be a good use of your time or money. You're going to focus on where are those key ways that people find real estate services. If you're a plumber, it's super different. I don't ask my friend for a plumber. I go to Google when my sink is leaking, and I look for a plumber right then. And so that's the type of industry where, hey, Google Ads is probably the #1 place you need to be because that's where people go to find the solution. And so you just got to, apply common sense and understand your business, your market, how people find information solutions, and focus your efforts in those areas.
Right. As opposed to thinking, oh, I guess I have to put stuff out there because everyone else is doing it. Doesn't necessarily mean you should be doing it, or maybe it means you should be doing it in your industry. I have this conversation with attorneys all the time. They're like, I don't really get any business off the internet. I said, yeah, but everybody checks you out on the internet, right? So you got to at least have SEO compliant content. You don't have to be running Google ads necessarily. Some niches do, but for the most part, I get my clients because they're human beings. They're real people. But they do read reviews and they find you and and I think people they underappreciate that. They don't think. And maybe that's, like you said, analysis of paralysis, so they're just, it's overwhelming to them to begin with anyway, so then they convince themselves, well, probably not a lot of business coming through the internet anyway. They think of themselves, if you're not Amazon or some e-commerce seller, what are you doing online? And it's just not the case even for professionals, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the #1 thing a lot of professionals can and should do right now is literally just go Google yourself, Google your name, your business name, and see what comes up. So many people just don't even have any idea what comes up. And like you said, pretty much everybody checks you out online before they make a decision to work with you. And so if you want something that can quickly move the needle, go see what comes up and be like, oh, you know what? Let me start getting some positive reviews, or let me, do what I need to do to make sure my website actually comes up and things like that. And that's going to have a massive impact on
you show up on
conversion
page
rates,
2, and
reputation,
then you're like,
etc.
that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I find that in my industry in particular, attorneys, and maybe it is part of laziness, or they're so busy trying to do whatever it is they think they're doing as professional attorneys, that they don't put in things that are, what's the word, automatic, or if ongoing is not the right word, but you know what I mean, things that happen in the background, continue your marketing, and do that stuff. So what kind of tools are there out there for the small business owner, to allow them to, post and, I don't know, doing things that keep things going. So if somebody's coming in, they connect with me, where does their name go, and things like that. I find that business owners come, they leave a networking event with a pile of business cards, they never do anything with them.
Totally.
So what kind of things do you see? What do you tell your clients?
Yeah, there's tons of tools out there that can help with things like that. There's things like, Vista Social for posting on social media, getting everything connected. I could come up with 50 different tool names, but I think I'm just going to pick one thing that, let's say, local businesses, Laura, as an
Okay.
example, can really focus on is going to be your Google Business profile. If
Yeah.
you want something where you can invest a little bit of time and have massive rewards, it's a free profile. It costs you no money to get or maintain. And if you make sure you've got the right categories set up, you've got good pictures in there, your hours, your contact information, your website, etc., that is the number one thing that's often going to come up when people are searching locally to find that local business or solution, and that's going to have massive return. So if you can
Yeah.
do one thing, go optimize your Google Business profile for free, and yeah, it'll be good.
Is that where your Google reviews kind of sit? They're connected to your
Exactly.
business
That's where
profile?
if I search, lawyers near me, for example, and you see some stuff come up in the Google Maps, or I search a specific lawyer's name and it comes up, yeah, it's got your hours, it's got your phone number, it's got your pictures, it's got your reviews. That's
Right.
all what they call a Google Business profile, and you can go to one place on Google to actually enter that information into Google.
Right. And if I remember right, that you can, it's not that self-evident, but you could find a link, right, that you can send, like in my case, I finish a matter with somebody, I send them a letter, say thanks for your, giving us your business. And, it really helps us if you give us a review, and there's a link to the Google profile, and then people leave a link, right? So
Yes.
people can embed that in an email or something like that, but they got to find the link first. But it shouldn't be that hard, right?
Yeah, no, it's right in the back end of that profile. Or hey, worst case scenario, you tell somebody just Google my name and it comes up. And yeah, those
Right.
those Google reviews are gold. And then what
Right.
a lot of people don't think about doing is responding to those reviews. Because
Yeah.
when you respond to those, whether they're positive or negative, whatever, give a great professional response to it. Google loves that because it shows you're engaged, so it helps your ranking. And normal people like me love that because I see that. I'm like, oh, okay, these guys are on top of things. They're actually engaging. They're
Right.
monitoring, their presence, and it's just a big reputation boost for a tiny bit of work.
Yeah. I better make a note about that. I probably don't respond enough. Respond to reviews. Okay. So somebody actually just told me recently that, if you send out a review letter, probably one isn't enough because they don't see it, they don't get to it, they mean well, it goes for a while, then they drop it. So you send it several times and whatever. That was one of the things I think that changed my influx of people that find me through Google versus networking as a professional. A friend of mine told me that they do that, and then we started doing it. So yeah, that was definitely a good piece of advice. So I guess when it comes to social media platforms, right, we're talking LinkedIn is really B2B for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram, well, Instagram might be straddling the two, but more B2C. And then is there any other platforms nowadays that people are using for things? I mean, TikTok, I guess, depending on what they sell and do, right? What the profession is.
Yeah,
I use
depending on your
content.
audience, certainly TikTok, and really YouTube. YouTube is
YouTube,
often kind
right?
of the
Yeah,
dark
we're on
horse.
YouTube with this,
Yeah,
right?
YouTube is so important, and also like YouTube is both kind of the social aspect of people watching videos and feed, but also from an SEO perspective. Google loves putting YouTube videos into the search results page when you search. A lot of people go
Right.
directly to YouTube to search, and so you get kind of double for your money, both showing up in people's feeds as well as actually getting into those search results pages.
Right. Yeah, I think Google owns YouTube, don't they? So
They
no
do,
wonder it's
and
showing up.
they love the integration. They love pushing people to
Yeah.
YouTube.
All right. So let's say, well, let's use different types of business, right? Let's say it's a blue collar business like a plumber you mentioned, right? You work with
Yeah.
plumbers. So if I'm a plumber and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to people's homes and I'm fixing their plumbing. I'm not selling plumbing online. I'm not a plumbing supply house, so I got to reach them. What is YouTube going to do for me? So what is the response to that? And what
That's
should
a
I
great
do?
question. Yeah, because YouTube is definitely not going to be as relevant for a plumber as for someone else. But a way you could think about it creatively would be, okay, let's say I'm targeting a very tight geographic area. If I make content about plumbing issues and really kind of try and tailor it geographically to my area, so probably a stupid example, but how to fix a sync link, a sync leak in
Yeah,
Bandera, Texas. Yeah, I'm close
right,
to Bandera, Texas. That type of stuff, that's probably going to rank pretty well, even if I go and start searching plumbing terms on Google, because again, Google loves showing YouTube content there. And if
right.
I see, oh, company X has a bunch of content on YouTube, and they are, running an ad or whatever, versus, hey, company Y, they've got nothing, I'm probably going to go with company X. They just look more reputable.
Right.
So it's not that I'm going to be scrolling through YouTube and see this amazing plumbing video and be like, yeah, let me go hire you necessarily.
No, but if it's a
And yet
DIY
it's
type of
still,
small thing, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I also think that in a lot of cases, DIY stuff is stuff you probably don't want to do yourself anyway, because it's not worth your time to charge somebody, right? They need to be helped. And at some point, they're going to be like, this is not working out well. I got to call John. He was his video. He'll help me do it. And people do that
Yeah.
legal too. I mean, they think, oh, if I give
Yeah.
it away, they're not going to call a lawyer. Yeah, no, they will.
No,
That's a
a
myth.
great example of that. Like I mentioned, we do a lot of work in the Google compliance space, helping advertisers, and we have hundreds of videos on our YouTube channel about
Yeah,
that. And that's a fantastic lead generation source for us because people, they'll watch it, they'll see information, but they'll realize, hey, this is complicated. I don't want to spend my time
right.
on it. I want to hire the expert.
Yeah,
These guys clearly know what they're talking about. And so,
right.
yeah, even though we give away a ton of free information, it brings paying clients to us.
Right. Yeah, because even the ones that could do it themselves, in most cases, it's not a good use of their time because you're the
Right.
expert, they're not the expert. You
Exactly.
know. Yeah, exactly. And even the ones that have some people in house, they weren't going to use you anyway. So you might as well get the PR boost of them, right? Of them seeing your video. I never
Yeah.
felt that giving away information, helping people with stuff, basic stuff, or even complicated stuff affects your business. The complicated stuff makes people call you because it's too complicated. The simple stuff, they weren't going to call you anyway. So at least they appreciate that you're helping them. You did it once, and the video stays up there. And I read blog articles all the time on business
Hmm.
topics and legal topics and whatever.
Yep.
Can people go and form their own LLC? Yeah, there's something called Zoom, legal Zoom, and there's things in states that are you can just go and do it yourself. That exists, whether I put a video, whether I put a blog article out or a video out, or we do a podcast show on it or whatever. So I think that people shot, they use it as an excuse not to do stuff because they think it's gonna. I also, interestingly enough, you're the first guy that told me the opposite of this. That's working for them. I always find that when you don't niche down in an industry,
Hmm.
right? That doesn't mean I don't work with all kinds of businesses, but my focus
Hmm.
is a certain profile, right?
Yeah.
That you tend to be like spread too thin when it comes to
Hmm.
trying to get a foothold in the plumbing industry in there, and they're like, well, John, you only got two plumbers, and you're like, yeah, well, we got two in every industry. We're the Noah's Ark of the digital marketing companies.
Yeah, and I think, because you're 100% right, and usually the advice is niche down. And in a way, our client base is not niche down, but in a way, we have niche down from a behavior perspective because this compliance side of things I keep talking about
Yeah, right.
has really been an entry point to us for many businesses across a wide variety of industries because everybody has policy issues. And so in some ways, if you go to our YouTube channel, most of our content is niche down in terms of, hey, are you having these types of problems? And
Yeah,
that's
makes
what then
sense.
introduces us to that business, which then
Yeah,
helps us help them with their other problems.
yeah, that makes sense. So you're niche down in the service that you provide or the expertise that you have, not necessarily because the guy's a plumber, or owns a restaurant, or has a clothing store, or something like that. Well, that makes
Exactly.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. All right, so maybe we could spend 20 minutes or so talking about the AI tools that you see out there and what people are using for digital marketing. Obviously everyone knows about ChatGPT, which is really just like a text-based. I mean, it does graphics too now, I guess, but you know what I mean. It's more like a search engine almost type of a thing. But I know there's a lot of tools out there. So,
Yeah.
what can you share with us in that regard?
Over the past just couple of months at this point, there's been a
Yeah.
massive strides in what's possible by AI because we've kind of
Mhm.
gone from where we've been at for a while with just the LLMs, which is primarily, text creation, image video creation as well, but mostly it's kind of chatbots, and that's what you
Yeah.
think of with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
With what has been released on the agent side of things, where the AI can actually go out, connect to accounts, do things, crawl websites in a more thorough manner, connect to APIs. It's really opening up new words.
You're talking about
And
OpenClaw, things like that. Somebody just
Things like
told me
that,
yesterday
exactly.
about it. Yeah.
OpenClaw is really kind of what captured the world's imagination, and
Yeah.
now both like Claude Cowork and Perplexity Computer do a lot of the same things in maybe a more secure or user-friendly way potentially than
Yeah.
OpenClaw.
OpenClaw is
It's
very. You almost
exactly
have to
that
be a
type of idea.
programmer for OpenClaw.
100%.
It's
Yeah, and
yeah.
so now, like, I'm not a developer. I don't know how to code, but I'm using tools like this to go do kind of things that are blowing my mind every day. It's like, wow, I can go do this, and like this
Yeah.
task that would have taken 5 hours manually if I
Right.
assigned it to somebody, I just got it
Yeah.
done, in a couple
I know.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
it's
they
so
do it
it's
overnight, and you come back in the morning,
yes,
and it's in your inbox or whatever.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting what some of those tools are able to accomplish. And then at the same time, it's still really important how you are feeding the data, the necessary data into those tools, how
Right.
you are constructing the prompts, because they're both incredibly smart and incredibly stupid. Like, they do not apply common sense to anything. They will
Right.
go and do, whatever you tell it to do, and you may realize, oh, I missed a couple words of context, and now it went and did what
Went
I
down
what
a
I told it
rabbit
to do,
hole.
but it wasn't what I wanted. And so there's a lot of learning right now. I think everyone's going through of how do you actually, put the right guardrails in place and prompt things correctly to get the output that you're looking for. But yeah, it's really exciting what the opportunities are right now.
Yeah. I mean, you almost can replace people that would normally do things that might take hours to research that a computer can do it in minutes. You know.
There are tons and tons of things, absolutely, already in our team where, yeah, it takes humans hours to do, and we're, putting things in place that takes minutes. And then that frees up, obviously, so much time for that person to then do more valuable, higher level work, have more capacity for working with people, have more conversations with their clients. And it's game changing, honestly,
Yeah.
in terms of
What
what's
have you seen
possible.
people are doing with these agents on the digital marketing side? I was
On the digital
curious.
marketing side,
Yeah.
you've got auditing, for example, auditing ad accounts, auditing websites. You've got content creation, which you have to be careful with. You still want a human component of that,
Right.
because it can, AI
Don't just
slop. There's a
post it and
reason
not
that
look at it. Right.
exists.
Exactly.
Exactly. But content creation. Um, a great example right now is we're starting to use it more internally for like quickly understanding context about clients. Like it can go and say, what's all the communication in this Slack channel and this email inbox and these transcripts of phone calls. And, I might have an hour conversation with my team saying what's going on. And now I literally can summarize all that for me and say, hey, here's what's going on in 5 minutes. And I read the bullet points like, okay, I know what's going on. Oh, these are the gaps that we're missing. Here's what we need to fix. Things like that. Just again, compressing the amount of time that it takes to do things is wild.
Right. Because normally you'd have to read it all and make
I'd have to
notes
read
and
it
summarize
all
it.
or
It could
talk to
just do it for you.
somebody and I get their
Yeah.
bias on things, and whereas I'm just like no bias. That's the other cool thing with the AI. Like there's no bias. So I'm leveraging this like when I'm giving feedback often to team members. It's like, hey, here's what the AI said about this conversation. Like you
Right.
can't say that I'm bringing bias into it and saying this was not a good conversation, or you should have done this. Like this is literally just what the AI is saying from the transcript. Yeah, you missed this thing, you missed this gap, and here's specific ideas on how to improve. And so it's a fantastic tool, I think, for managers in helping give very clear and, again, kind of unbiased feedback to their team members.
Right. Because the agent could analyze your text messages between each other, Slack channels, emails, the whole thing.
Call
Yeah.
transcripts, everything is out there. And yeah, like our sales team, for example, we're able to say, okay, give coaching to sales team members. Like here's, it reviewed 5 of your calls. Here's
Yeah.
where you're doing a great job. Here's where, hey, they found these opportunities to improve. And it's a lot harder to get offended
Right.
humanly by the AI saying
Yeah.
that versus a sales manager like, oh, well, okay, you're favoriting this person over me or
Right.
whatever. It's like,
Exactly. You just don't
no,
like me.
here's
Right.
just black and white. Here's what it's saying. So it's kind of hard to dispute with that.
Right. 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 Well, what tools? So what are these platforms besides OpenClaw that I mentioned? What were the other ones you said?
Yeah. Yeah, so some of the biggest ones right now would be so Anthropic has Claude
Yeah.
Cowork, and Claude Code. That is massive right now, and there's a reason Anthropic's making incredibly more money in the last couple of months even
I
than they
think
were
it was
before.
originally OpenClawed, and they got a cease and desist from Anthropic.
Exactly. It was
Yeah.
OpenClaw. Anthropic didn't like that with their Claude. Then OpenAI went, OpenAI, of course, ChatGPT, they went and bought, or well, not, but they hired the maker of OpenClaw, so now he works for OpenAI. There's all sorts of fun AI wars going on. But Claude right now is doing really well, and also Perplexity. They have a tool called Perplexity Computer, which is a similar idea. It's this agentic world where it's able to connect to things, connect by APIs, as well as be a browser essentially, and go out and look at websites and information. And both those tools are really impressive right now.
Yeah, that's like the beginning of the Terminator, where the computers are going to start to think for themselves and decide that they don't need us anymore.
It's a little scary sometimes. I will agree with that.
It's a little scary. I was telling somebody, I think yesterday, there was a podcast I was listening to. It was a fictional story, right? And they were interviewing, and there was this thing they were talking about called the Great Deletion. And what happened was they had AI tools. Everybody had so much data in the cloud that you started using an agent to say, hey, listen, can you look through all of my data? Anything that's not relevant to what's going on in my life right now, delete, right? But then what the agent tool did was, after that stuff was deleted, then it would relook at what you said and said, well, that's not relevant because we deleted this. And so we don't need, and it deleted everything, and the whole world had to go back to analog because all the data got deleted.
So I laugh, but it's kind of
not that
true.
far-fetched.
Some of the stuff I've seen AI do is like, you got to be super careful because again, it's not applying common sense to things. It's not like a human
the data
where it's like, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't delete everything. It's like, oh, you told me to do it, so sure, I'll do it. And
of course,
it can have consequences.
I think people don't realize that these large language models, they think like we think. It's just that they have a lot more data in their head than one person. So you make assumptions and tell somebody something based on your experience you've had in whatever many decades of your life. An AI chatbot, it can do that, but it can access everyone's data, and it's going to draw conclusions. That's why sometimes it's wrong, right? Because it's seeing something you said and I said, and then drawing a conclusion based on the two that makes sense to it. It's a loose word, right? When it comes to computers, people don't understand that they don't read English. Like computers don't read words; they read data, and they read They read numbers. So some sort of an algorithm is translating whatever it is you wrote, that article, into numbers for the computer to understand, right? So it's more complicated than that. But that's kind of like what's going on and why things are incorrect. Because you and I say things incorrect all the time and are completely confident that we know what we're talking about. And then find out that we're wrong. It's the same thing because it's basically what's happening.
And you can even use, AI models to kind of keep each other accountable. Like we're crafting things where we'll literally have a task done both by Claude and by Perplexity and by ChatGPT or whatever, and it'll be fascinating. We'll be like, okay, yeah, this one got this thing right, this one got that thing right, and then you literally have it kind of check itself, and it gives a better output than just using any individual one of those.
And they're never the same, right?
You might have multiple people look at something, and then
the same thing.
Exactly.
Right, multiple people, you're never going to get the same result. So I guess with the website, you're never going to get the same result either, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about like where we're going from here, right? You got a small business owner, they're starting to market their business. Maybe they're connecting with a guy like you, hopefully, right? They're trying to do it on their own. I don't know what they're doing. And they're starting to build a presence and do things. So if I'm a small business owner, and this is what I should do. I don't know if they do this, right? But I should have a strategy, right? Like a digital marketing strategy. So how do I know I'm kind of throwing this at you, but how do I start to like build that, let's call it blueprint, simply to start as the business owner? Like, where do I start and what do I start, the blocks that I start to build on?
Maybe you're getting your calendaring from one software and you're invoicing from another. Evenoo is a platform that we use as one of our sponsors to run our entire business. And there's other features like auto payments and integrations with QuickBooks. Visit evenoo.com, EVONUE.com to learn more. There's also a link in the show notes. And be sure to tell them that the Accidental Entrepreneur referred you. This podcast is brought to you by our affiliate sponsor, iEmployee. iEmployee is a virtual assistant service that hires almost anyone for any role in your company right out of the Philippines. Most roles range from $7 to $9 an hour for highly skilled and experienced VAs. And whether you need an executive assistant, social media manager, video editor, customer service, sales, you name it, they have it. We use iEmployee for our VA services, from editing and promoting the podcast to all the PR and promotion of our law firm. iEmployee acts as a virtual field supervisor on the back end with live video monitoring and reports on a daily basis with screenshots of your VA's workday, and along with complete HR and payroll duties. No more paying for overpriced and underqualified workers. There's a link in the show notes to get a 1-week free trial, and I encourage you to take advantage of it.
Yeah, a couple places.
You said
First,
Google My Business. That was a good place to start, right?
yeah, Google My Business, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, that is a good example of thinking through, again, how do people find solutions in my industry? That is the first place I would start.
Okay.
And that's going to be very different for different industries.
Right. It might
And
be
you need
YouTube,
to
might be something else.
exactly. It might be YouTube. You know, you might be a business where people don't search for what you do, and so that means you're going to be creating content on Facebook or TikTok or whatever to say, hey, here's my widget, here's my thing.
Right.
Versus, hey, if they do search, or if it is word of mouth, or if it is whatever, you've got to really understand that. And you can talk to your existing customers. Hey, how did you find me? You know, you can ask questions, try and build data.
Exactly.
And then that should really inform where you're going to focus your time, your efforts, and your resources initially.
Yeah.
And then you also can think through, this is where the data comes in. Like, the more you can understand about your customers, about your data, the better. If you understand things like lifetime value, how much you are going to generate on average from a customer, then you can start making better decisions about your marketing budget and about how much you can afford to spend to acquire each customer based upon how
Right.
valuable they're going to be to you.
Right.
And so that's going to, directly go into, well, what budget, should I invest into marketing? You need to know, what could it be realistic to expect in terms of how many customers I can get from this budget, how much they're worth to me, etc. And so it can be daunting to
Yeah, some people don't even
go
have a
from
budget, right?
exactly to
They
not
just
have
struggle.
that. And so yeah, we when people reach out to us, we try and help them with those things. Often even before we're like, yeah, Google Ads, whatever. It's like, okay, where are you at? What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Let's
Right.
talk through your numbers, things like that, so we can get a sense for what's realistic, so we can set good expectations. Because expectations, if someone comes in and starts working with us and they think we're going to give them the moon, and we don't temper that and say, oh yeah,
Yeah.
we'll give you the moon, then no one's going to be happy. It's not
Right.
going to be successful for anybody. And so we're
Right.
going to try and set realistic expectations and then go meet those, or beat them, hopefully.
Right. Well, I mean, sometimes it's on the client, right? You can't put out content and create a digital strategy without the content from the client who knows
Yeah.
their business, right? You're not going to, I mean, I don't think you're going to write plumbing articles or create, videos for people. You could shoot them, but the plumber's got to kind of do it,
Yeah, you got to figure out how to kind of capture that secret sauce of, hey, okay, I've been plumbing for 20 years, and you know what? I'm probably not great at writing articles. I might not even be great on video, but if I can come in and understand how to capture your essence and capture that unique knowledge that only you have, and then put that into distribute that via video or text or whatever in a way that is compelling to people, then
Right.
that's kind of where the magic happens, is marrying those two things.
Got it. All right. Makes sense. So, what do you have on the burner for the future? Like when we're talking about your business, right? So,
Yeah.
you have, and I assume most of your business is virtual. You don't have like an office where everybody goes and in cubicles and things like that.
Yeah.
Not anymore. So, how many people you have as part of your team?
Yeah, we've got around 30 people on the team
Oh,
in that range.
you have a lot.
And we're all over the place, kind of global team at this point. And yeah, in terms of what we're focusing on right now, a lot of time and energy into AI and understanding on the kind of the internal workings of our company. How can we leverage it on behalf of our clients? How can we get things done faster, get things done better, increase our capacity for some of those higher level strategic conversations and the fun work,
Yeah.
and get a lot of the button pushing, a lot of the other things automated. And so yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff that's in the works right now, and that's where a lot of our time and energy is going.
So, is your organization structured like in teams that handle different things, or is there like an account person that you do? Like, what's the structure of your business?
Yeah, so generally, when clients come on board with us, usually the person that they're working with is also doing a lot of the work on their account. So we try and
Okay.
keep things pretty flat so that we're not losing, lots of information and translation between, let's say, project managers and the people doing the actual work. Obviously, there's nuance and exceptions to that. And then we have, we have teams for different service areas. So we have teams who are expert on the Google compliance side of things. We have people who are expert on actually managing, paid search, expert at managing paid social, SEO, etc. And so, there's different teams, and we try and make sure that they're working together the right way on behalf of the clients who hire us.
Yeah. And how do you connect with most of these people? I mean, if they're in Brazil, how did you meet them? Yeah, I'm sure they are.
Lots and lots of interviews. I spend a lot of time as a CEO just putting out job postings, working with headhunters, finding people who look like they've got the right stuff, and then vetting them, having conversations, having them do test projects and things to really understand, do they have the chops, the level of expertise that we want. Most of them don't, only a small percentage do. So it's just a lot of time spent looking for those needles in the haystack.
Right. So, and how do you administer the organization? So do you have a payroll? Because I always find it difficult, right? If you have somebody in the Philippines and in Brazil and in Ukraine and here, you can't be filing payroll taxes in all those places. So do you use a service to do that, or how do you manage all that stuff? The HR side, I guess, is better.
Yeah, usually we have kind of contractor agreements with team members, but people who are working exclusively with us. So it's not like outsourcing where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we're getting this outsourced, person who's working with us and 5 other companies. It's like, nope, these are our team members. They're fully a part of the team. But usually, it's a contractor type agreement from a legal perspective.
And then you just pay them? You don't have to deal with payroll or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we've got an HR team who kind of handles, working, sending out. There's a variety of different countries have different kind of approaches, but yeah, ultimately getting those payments sent out and getting things taken care of.
Yeah, because like I use a VA and I wouldn't deal with her directly. Like I pay the service and they deal with that stuff. I don't. Yeah, wouldn't even know at the beginning. And I do have clients that have gotten in trouble with the Department of Labor and wherever state in which they're working because they didn't do something correct, and they're like, no, they're just contractors. I go, yeah, you don't get to choose that.
Right.
The government chooses that. And they're usually looking at, I'm sure that's different in other countries, but it's certainly in this country.
In this country, there's certainly, obviously, you've got employment laws. You got to be very, very clear about what's an employee, what's a contractor, and then different countries have different approaches.
Right. Yeah, no, I have a couple of clients that won't hire people in certain states. They won't hire anybody in California. They won't hire anybody in New York because they're very pro employee, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through, and you get stuck with a lot of compliance responsibilities and potentially fines and stuff like that.
States, and they, from a tax perspective, they want to take as much as they can from you. It's like, oh, you got one employee in this state. All right, we're going to take our pound of flesh. So yeah, it gets remote work definitely brought a significant level of complexity to.
Yeah, I don't think people really realize that, because I understand things in Texas are pretty, employer favorable. It's not crazy.
It's pretty business.
Yeah, but how many people you have in Texas that you employ?
We have probably 3 or 4, I think, in that range.
So it's like 10%.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting. All right, so if people want to, start learning about you, learning from you, maybe learning about the Google compliance side, things like that, where do they start?
Yeah, easiest places, either our website, StubGroup.com, or YouTube channel. Search StubGroup on there, and we got tons and tons of free content there.
Got it. Okay, we'll put some links in the show notes. And are you on LinkedIn too? Your profile's on LinkedIn?
I am.
And people can connect that way. Okay. I don't remember. Did you write a book? Everybody writes a book these days.
No, not specifically. No? Yeah, my claim to fame is more in the
next project.
Lots of videos, lots of content out there. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I would think you'd be doing a lot of videos on all the compliance side. You're actually the first person that I met in your space that really focuses on the Google compliance stuff. Because there was something recently, or maybe not recently, in the last year or two, we had to make a change to your email because Gmail and Yahoo, right, and they wouldn't accept your emails unless something was changed in your DNS records, or I forget what it was. But all of a sudden, none of my emails were getting through to anybody, and I had to make some changes.
That's fun. That's a good feeling.
Yeah. You don't remember that?
Yeah. I do not remember that specifically.
Probably because your guys were up on it. It didn't happen to you because you...
Could well be, yes. I guess we're prepared, so kudos to my team on that.
Exactly. All right, John, well, I can't thank you enough for jumping on with me for about 40 minutes or so. And, enjoy the weather in Texas. I guess it's going to rain here, but it's nice there. My son keeps telling me he wakes up and it's 70, 80 degrees. So
Yes, I'll get my suntan this weekend and think of you.
Nice. All right, John. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
In addition to being a podcast host, I'm also a small business attorney, mostly providing legal services in New York and New Jersey. With over 3 decades of experience, we can handle most transactional issues. So if you're watching the show and you encounter some sort of legal issue, reach out to us and visit our website, beinhakerlaw.com. Thanks for tuning into the show and for continuing to support us.